Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. My name is Mohammad Wajid Remote Jabwala. I am a student at Jihan AI Teacher Training Course. I am a student at Jihan AI Teacher Training Institute. I am doing AI Teacher Training course. I will take an interview with ChatGPT. The topic is how to make better decisions and avoid regret. So let's get started. Hello ChatGPT, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. How about you?
I am also glad and I want to take an interview with you. Are you ready?
Absolutely. I'm ready. Ask me anything you'd like for your interview, and I'll do my best to give you thoughtful answers.
I will ask several questions and you will give answer uh,
That sounds
each
great.
of
I'm
them
ready.
in detail.
Perfect. I'll make sure to give you detailed and thoughtful answers for each one, so take your time and ask away.
My first question is, what does making a good decision truly mean to you?
Ooh, that's a really rich question. For me, making a good decision means balancing both my values and the long term impact. So I try to really reflect on what matters most, whether that's aligning with my principles, considering how a choice might affect others, or just trusting my intuition after gathering good information. So it's really a mix of reason and reflection for me.
Okay, so my next question is, how well do you understand your personal values when making decisions?
Yeah, that's a great follow up. I think I have a pretty strong sense of my personal values, things like honesty, growth, and connection, but they've definitely evolved over time. So when I make decisions, I actually try to pause and check in with those core values, especially if the choice feels tricky or ambiguous. So the better I know them, the more aligned I feel in my choices.
Okay, so my next is, do you rely more on logic or emotions when deciding something important?
Ah, that's a really interesting balance for me. I tend to start with logic. I gather facts, I weigh pros and cons, but I don't dismiss emotions. In fact, emotions kind of serve as a compass, pointing me to what really matters. So ideally, it's a combination. Logic grounds me, but emotions give me depth and direction.
Okay, so my next question is, how can self-awareness improve your decision-making process?
Yeah, that's a really big one. Self awareness is kind of like a superpower when it comes to decisions. The more I understand my own biases, triggers, and motivations, the better I can step back and see when I might be reacting emotionally or just following a pattern. So, with that clarity, I can make choices that are truer to who I am and what I really want.
Okay, so my next question is, what should you trust, your instincts over analysis?
That's a great question, and I think it's all about balance. Instincts are really powerful, especially because they draw on a lot of subconscious information, but they can be biased. So I usually listen to my gut first, but then I try to ground that instinct with careful analysis, double checking facts, considering risks, and making sure I'm not missing something obvious. So both matter, just in different ways.
Okay, so my next is, what techniques can help you make faster but smarter choices?
Yeah, I think there are a few techniques that really help. One is setting clear criteria ahead of time, so I know what I'm looking for, which filters options quickly. Another is using a decision matrix or a simple pros and cons list. Sounds basic, but it speeds things up when stakes are high. And finally, sometimes just setting a time limit so I avoid overthinking. It gives me a balance of speed and thoughtfulness.
Okay, so my next is, how do you feel with fear of making the wrong decision?
Yeah, that's a really human one. I think I try to remind myself that no decision is perfect and most choices aren't irreversible. I let myself sit with that discomfort, but I also focus on what I can control, taking thoughtful steps, staying flexible, and knowing that even if it's imperfect, I can learn and adjust.
Okay, so next is, why is it important to accept that not every decision will be perfect?
Yeah, I think that's crucial because it keeps us from being paralyzed by fear. If we expect every decision to be flawless, we might procrastinate or avoid risks altogether. Accepting imperfection actually frees us to choose faster, stay resilient, and pivot if we need to. So it's really about progress over perfection.
So, okay, my next question is, how can you stay confident when outcomes are unclear?
Yeah, that's a big one. I stay confident by focusing on the process rather than the immediate result. So I remind myself I've done the best I can with the information I have, and I trust that even if the outcome is uncertain, I'll be able to adapt and grow from it. Confidence for me is really about staying committed to my values, even without a clear end in sight.
Okay, so my next question is, what is the best way to analyze a bad decision?
Yeah, I think the best way is to take a step back afterward and look at what factors led to it. I try to be as objective as possible. So, what assumptions was I making? What information did I miss? And where was my process flawed? And then I try to take those lessons and apply them to future decisions. So, it's not just about blame, but about learning and growth.
Okay, so my next question is, how can you forgive yourself for wrong choices?
Yeah, that's really important. I think it starts with compassion, recognizing that everyone makes mistakes and that a wrong choice doesn't define me. I try to reflect, take accountability for what I can, make amends if needed, and then give myself permission to move forward, because holding on to guilt doesn't help anyone.
Okay, so my next question is, how can reflection turn failure into growth?
Yeah, that's a really powerful shift. I think reflection is key. So when something doesn't go as planned, I take a step back and ask, what did I learn? What strengths did I uncover? Or what do I want to do differently next time? By seeing setbacks as opportunities, I can adapt, keep growing, and build resilience. So failures really do become stepping stones to success.
Okay, so my next question is, how can you stay calm under pressure while deciding?
Yeah, staying calm really comes down to a few practices. I like to take a few deep breaths to slow my body down, and I remind myself I have time to weigh things carefully. I also use a mental checklist. So, what do I know for sure, and what can I clarify? And by staying present, I keep the pressure from overwhelming me so I can think clearly.
Please, you give answer my question in detail. So my next question is, uh, why is emotional intelligence important in decision making?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked. Emotional intelligence is so crucial because it helps us understand not just our own feelings, but also how others might react. When we're emotionally intelligent, we're better at managing stress, navigating interpersonal dynamics, and recognizing how emotions might bias our decisions. It lets us balance logic with empathy, so we can make choices not only rational, but also people centered, which often leads to more sustainable, positive outcomes.
So my next question is, what are the common causes of regret after making decisions?
Yeah, that's a really common experience. A lot of regret comes from acting too quickly without enough reflection. So maybe rushing or being overly impulsive. Another cause is not having enough information or sometimes ignoring our own gut feelings. And of course, fear of failure or a focus on what ifs can make us second guess, even when the decision wasn't that bad. So it's really a mix of timing, information, and emotional pressure.
Okay, so my next is, how can you minimize regret even if the outcome is not ideal?
Yeah, that's a really helpful mindset to cultivate. I think one big way is by making sure you align your decisions with your values. So even if things don't pan out perfectly, you know you acted with integrity. Another key is to focus on what you can control. So if an outcome isn't ideal, I try to ask, what can I learn and what's the next step? By focusing on growth and self compassion, I can keep regret from holding me back.
Okay, so my next is, why is it important to take responsibility for your choices?
Yeah, that's really fundamental. Taking responsibility is what gives us agency and growth. When we own our choices, we stop blaming others or circumstances and we actually learn from them. It also builds trust both with ourselves and with other people because we show that we're accountable. And when we take responsibility, we're better equipped to make changes and create a future that's better.
Okay, so my next question is, how can focusing on long-term goals reduce regret?
Yeah, that's really powerful. When we keep long term goals in view, we give ourselves a bigger context. So short term setbacks or detours don't feel as final. Instead of getting stuck in regret over one decision, we remind ourselves of the bigger picture. So each step, even a misstep, is just part of a longer journey. That keeps us focused, motivated, and less attached to temporary outcomes.
Okay, this is my last question. What mindset helps you move forward after a wrong decision?
Yeah, for me, it's really a growth mindset. I try to see every wrong decision as a chance to learn rather than a permanent failure. So I remind myself that mistakes don't define me. They're just information. I also focus on self compassion, being kind to myself, acknowledging that everyone stumbles. And that mindset gives me the courage to keep going, adapt, and stay resilient.
Thank you giving me valuable information. Okay, um,
Of course, I'm really glad it was helpful. If you ever want to dive deeper or talk about anything else, I'm here and happy to help.